Hi guys. Tonight we begin not on land, not by a friendly fire, but standing with you on the deck of a wooden pirate ship as winter tightens its grip around the sea. The planks beneath your boots are stiff with cold, the salt spray freezes almost the moment it touches your skin, and the wind coming off the water cuts straight through your clothes as if they were paper. Somewhere above you, canvas snaps and groans, and the mast complains in a low wooden voice that never truly goes silent. This is where your night will happen. This is where you will try to sleep. You probably will not survive this comfortably. That thought slips in quietly, not as fear, but as a simple, practical observation. Winter at sea does not care about bravado, flags, or reputation. It only cares about heat and how quickly your body loses it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you are settling in, tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is right now where you live. Now, dim the lights and let the story carry you forward, slowly, gently, as the ship rocks beneath you. You are a pirate, or at least you live like one tonight. In the Middle Ages, especially between the late medieval period and the early age of sail, piracy was less the romantic adventure of songs and more a daily negotiation with hunger, dampness, and cold. A mainstream historical fact that often surprises people is that most pirate ships were not purpose-built vessels. They were captured merchant ships, fishing boats, or repurposed coastal traders. That matters for sleep, because these ships were never designed for comfort. They were designed to move cargo, not bodies that needed warmth. As night settles in, there is no formal bedtime. Sleep happens when it can. You feel it first in your hands. Fingers stiffen. The simple task of tying a knot becomes slower. Breath fogs in front of your face. Somewhere nearby, another crewman coughs. The sound wet and deep, and you instinctively edge a little closer, not for conversation, but for shared warmth. Below decks, the air is marginally less brutal. You duck down the narrow hatch, shoulders hunched, and immediately the smell hits you. Tar, old wood, unwashed bodies, damp rope, and bilge water all blend into a thick, unmistakable scent. It is unpleasant, yes, but it also means something important. It means the wind cannot reach you as easily. It means you might keep some heat tonight. Pirates slept where they could. There were no private cabins for ordinary crew. Officers might have claimed small enclosed spaces near the stern, but you are not there. You find a stretch of deck, a coil of rope, maybe a rolled sail. This becomes your bed. Historians still argue whether pirates preferred hammocks or sleeping directly on planks during cold weather. Hammocks lifted you away from damp wood, which helped with moisture, but they also exposed you to moving air. Planks were harder and colder, yet closer to stored warmth below deck. Tonight, there is no choice. You take what is free. You do not undress. That is another well-established historical reality. Clothing is bedding. Wool shirts, rough trousers, patched coats, and sometimes even boots stay on. Wool, especially, matters. Unlike linen or cotton, it holds heat even when damp. That knowledge was not scientific in language, but it was deeply practical, learned through cold nights like this one. As you settle down, the ship itself becomes part of your awareness. It never stops moving. A slow roll, a gentle rise and fall. The soundscape wraps around you. Wood creaks. Ropes hum softly under tension. Water slaps against the hull in a steady rhythm that almost resembles breathing. Over time, these sounds stop feeling threatening. They become oddly soothing, like a cradle made of oak and salt. There is a quirky tidbit here that often gets overlooked. Some pirates believed that sleeping with your head pointed toward the bow brought bad luck, especially in winter storms. Others insisted the opposite, claiming it aligned your body with the ship's movement and reduced sickness. No one truly knew which was right, but you still notice how bodies tend to line up in similar directions, shaped by habit and superstition, rather than logic. Cold seeps in anyway. It finds the gaps. Your shoulders tense, then slowly relax as exhaustion wins. You pull your arms close, knees tucked slightly inward, conserving heat without consciously thinking about it. This posture, instinctive and ancient, shows up in countless accounts of sailors, soldiers, and travelers facing cold nights. Sleep does not come all at once. It arrives in pieces. A few minutes of drifting, a shiver that wakes you, a sound above deck, someone moving nearby, then drifting again. Medieval seafarers did not expect 8 uninterrupted hours. They expected rest in fragments, stitched together across darkness. Somewhere deeper in the ship, a small brazier glows faintly, carefully watched. Fire aboard a wooden ship is always dangerous, yet without it, winter nights become unbearable. Captains and quartermasters debated constantly how much heat was worth the risk. This balance between safety and survival defined shipboard life. Scholars still debate how often pirates actually used open flame below decks in winter, because written records are scarce and biased toward official navies. But the presence of soot stains and metal firepans found in wrecks suggests it happened more often than rules would admit. You inhale slowly. The air is thick, but it is warmer than the deck above. The smell that once offended now reassures. You are not alone. Bodies nearby radiate faint warmth. Elbows touch. A shoulder presses against yours. No one comments. There is no embarrassment. This is simply how you make it through the night. As your breathing steadies, the cold becomes less sharp. Not gone, just dulled. Thoughts drift. You imagine land, fire, straw beds. Then the ship rolls slightly harder, reminding you where you are. At sea, in winter, alive. For now. And as sleep finally begins to hold you, loosely, imperfectly, you understand something fundamental about pirate life that rarely makes it into stories. Survival was not about daring raids or buried treasure. It was about enduring nights like this. Quietly. Together. One breath at a time. You wake without fully waking. There is no clear line between sleep and awareness out here. Night routines on a winter pirate ship are shaped less by clocks and more by cold, sound, and exhaustion. Your eyes stay closed, but your body registers movement around you. Someone shifts their weight. A rope creaks as the ship leans. Somewhere above, a watch changes. Boots crossing the deck in a slow, deliberate pattern meant to keep blood flowing in numb legs. Pirates did not end their days with a bell and a prayer. When darkness fell, the crew simply faded into rest in waves. A mainstream historical fact is that most ships, pirate or otherwise, ran on a watch system, even at night. Portions of the crew slept, while others stayed awake to steer, watch for weather, or guard against surprise. That meant sleep came in turns. You were never fully off duty. Even while lying still, you knew you might be nudged awake at any moment. You shift slightly, careful not to disturb the bodies pressed close to you. Space is shared carefully. Every inch of warmth matters. There is no personal bubble. Someone's elbow rests against your ribs. A shoulder warms your back. The contact feels practical rather than intimate. In winter, closeness is survival. Lantern light flickers faintly through cracks in the deck above. It paints soft, moving shapes on the walls below. The light is kept low on purpose. Too much flame risks fire, and too much brightness invites alertness when rest is precious. Pirates learn to sleep with light and sound present. Total silence never comes at sea. Your mind drifts in and out, catching fragments of thought. You remember the feel of the deck earlier, how cold it was through your boots. That memory alone makes you tuck your feet closer to your body. Sleep posture here is not accidental. Knees draw up, arms cross the chest, heads lower slightly, protecting the neck from drafts. These small adjustments repeat across centuries of seafaring, echoed in ship logs and sailor memoirs. There is a curious detail that shows up in some fringe accounts. A few pirates believed that sleeping too deeply at sea was dangerous, especially in winter. They feared cold could steal awareness, pulling a man into sleep so heavy he might not wake when needed. Whether this belief was superstition or observation remains unclear. Historians still argue whether fragmented sleep was a necessity imposed by watchers or a deliberate strategy to stay half alert in hostile waters. You feel the ship slow slightly, then pick up again, responding to wind and current. The rhythm seeps into your breathing. Inhale, exhale. The cold is still there, pressing at your face and hands, but your core stays warm enough. Barely. Nearby, someone mutters in their sleep. The words are meaningless, slurred by exhaustion. Another crewman laughs softly, then goes quiet. Dreams here are thin and restless. The body never fully relaxes. Even so, these half-dreams offer escape. In them, the deck is dry. The wind is gone. The ground does not move. From above comes the faint splash of seawater against the hull. Each sound confirms what your senses already know. You are afloat, suspended between dark water and darker sky. This awareness might seem unsettling, but over time it becomes oddly comforting. The ship holds you. The crew holds you. You belong to this floating world for the night. As minutes stretch into an indistinct blur, you notice how time loses its shape. Without daylight, without clocks, the night feels endless. Yet your body keeps count in its own way, marking rest by warmth gained or lost. A cold foot wakes you. A warmer shoulder lulls you back down. Some scholars debate whether pirates actually slept more poorly than naval sailors, or if the difference has been exaggerated by myth. Navy ships enforced stricter routines, but pirates had more flexibility. Tonight, flexibility means you can shift, adjust, steal warmth where you find it, without fear of punishment. Comfort is informal, negotiated silently among bodies packed close. Eventually, your thoughts slow again. Not gone, just softer. The ship creaks like an old house settling. You sink into that sound, letting it replace conscious worry. Sleep returns, light and fragile, but enough. The night is far from over, but for now, you rest within it, carried gently forward by wood, water, and shared endurance. Sleep loosens its grip again as the ship shifts beneath you, not sharply, just enough to remind your body that rest here is always temporary. Your eyes remain closed, but your awareness drifts back, floating somewhere between dreaming and listening. This is when you become aware of what you are lying on or hanging from, and why that choice matters so much in winter. Not everyone sleeps the same way aboard this ship. Some bodies sway gently above the deck, suspended in rough, woven hammocks tied to beams and hooks. Others, like you, remain closer to the planks, choosing stillness over motion. Both options have their costs. Sailors learned this through long, cold experience rather than instruction manuals. Period ship inventories and sailors' accounts make it clear that hammocks were widely used by the late medieval period, especially on ships that expected long voyages. They were practical, easy to stow, and kept sleepers off damp wood. Hanging above the deck also reduced contact with vermin that crawled along the planks. In theory, this made hammocks the smarter choice. But theory fades quickly in winter. You notice how the air moves more freely above the deck. Cold currents slide underneath the hammock, wrapping around the body like invisible fingers. Every sway pushes you into fresh, cold. It is not violent, just persistent. For some, that movement is comforting. For others, it becomes a slow drain on warmth. Below you, the deck holds cold but also memory. Wood absorbs heat during the day, however little there is, and releases it slowly through the night. That stored warmth is minimal, yet meaningful. Lying flat allows your body to share heat with the surface and with others nearby. It is harder, less forgiving, but it does not steal warmth the same way moving air does. There is an old seafaring detail that surfaces in scattered journals and oral traditions. Some sailors claimed that hammocks were cursed in winter storms, believing the constant motion invited bad dreams or even illness. Others swore the opposite, insisting that swinging kept blood flowing and prevented stiffness. Modern historians remain divided on which position had more practical merit, because the evidence is experiential rather than measurable. You test the space around you without opening your eyes. A foot brushes against rope. Your shoulder presses into a coil of sailcloth. Someone nearby shifts in their hammock, causing a faint creak and a whisper of fabric. The sound blends into the ship's larger voice, never isolated, never alarming. Those who sleep on the deck tend to cluster. Bodies align instinctively, forming loose rows that maximize shared warmth. There is no spoken agreement. It simply happens. An arm becomes a barrier against drafts. A back becomes a wall of heat. In winter, privacy dissolves into practicality. A lesser-known detail preserved in sailors' lore is that some pirates padded the deck beneath themselves with folded clothing, spare canvas, or even empty sacks. It was not comfortable by modern standards, but it created a thin layer of insulation. Every scrap of fabric mattered. Nothing was wasted. Even damp material helped slow heat loss. Your breathing deepens again as you adjust, settling into a position that feels sustainable rather than perfect. Comfort here is measured in degrees, not luxury. The cold still presses at your nose and fingers, but your core steadies. Muscles unclench slightly. Jaw loosens. Some accounts suggest that pirates chose their sleeping arrangement based on weather forecasts as much as habit. Calm nights favored hammocks. Bitter cold favored the deck. Academic opinion has never fully settled on whether these choices significantly affected health outcomes, but patterns repeat often enough to suggest intention rather than coincidence. The ship rolls gently, and for a moment, you imagine what it would feel like to be suspended, swinging with the motion. Then another draft brushes your cheek, and you are quietly grateful for the solid planks beneath you. They are unforgiving, but honest. Sleep returns in a thinner layer this time. Less dream, more rest. The body does what it can with what it has. Around you, hammocks sway, chests rise and fall, and the ship carries everyone forward through the dark. You are not warm, you are not fully asleep, but you are enduring, and for a pirate in a medieval winter, that is enough for now. The cold creeps in again, quietly, the way it always does when your body stops moving. You become aware of your clothing, not as garments, but as layers of defense. Everything you wear tonight stays on. Nothing is removed. Out here, clothes are not about appearance or modesty. They are about holding on to warmth long enough to sleep. Wool scratches faintly against your skin as you shift. It smells of smoke, salt, and old sweat. This fabric matters more than gold tonight. Sailors across medieval Europe learned through long trial that wool keeps heat even when wet, unlike linen shirts that turn clammy and cold. Surviving maritime records confirm that crews valued wool garments so highly they were often listed alongside weapons and tools, not personal items. You pull your coat tighter, feeling the stiffness where salt water dried into the fibers. Some pirates layered multiple shirts, even in sleep, creating a crude but effective insulation system. Others wrapped spare cloth around their midsection or shoulders, protecting vital areas where heat escapes fastest. There is no elegance here, only habit shaped by cold nights just like this one. A small but telling detail appears in scattered port records and sailors' testimonies. Some pirates deliberately slept with damp outer layers on rather than removing them. The logic sounds strange, but it had a purpose. Damp cloth freezes slower than bare skin in cold wind, forming a barrier against sudden temperature drops. Whether this practice truly helped or simply felt reassuring is something many researchers continue to disagree about. Boots remain on feet, not because they are comfortable, but because numb toes are dangerous. Laces loosen just enough to keep blood moving, leather stiff with cold, soles thin against the deck. You curl your feet slightly inward, trapping warmth where you can. There is an odd tradition whispered about in seafaring circles. Some pirates believed that sleeping bareheaded invited illness, especially during winter voyages. Caps, scarves, or even tied cloth stayed wrapped around heads through the night. Heat lost through the scalp was noticed long before it was measured, and instinct filled the gaps where science had no language yet. You notice how bodies nearby mirror the same logic. Sleeves pulled down over hands, collars raised, necks tucked. Everyone looks bulkier at night, layered into uneven shapes beneath dim light. Individual identities blur. What remains is a group of human forms trying to slow the cold. As you breathe steadily, the smell of wool and tar becomes oddly calming. It signals effort, preparation, the sense that something stands between you and the night air. Your muscles soften a little, trusting these layers to do their job. Some historians question whether pirates truly had better access to warm clothing than ordinary sailors, given their irregular supply lines. Others point to captured cargo and shared plunder as evidence that pirate crews often dressed better than naval conscripts. The truth likely varied ship to ship, night to night. What matters now is that you have enough. Barely. Sleep presses closer again, heavier this time. Your body accepts the limits of comfort and works within them. The cold remains, but it no longer shocks. It becomes background, like the sound of water against the hull. Wrapped in fabric, surrounded by breathing bodies, you drift again, not deeply, but steadily. Clothes become blankets, layers become shelter, and for the moment, that is sufficient. As your breathing evens out once more, another sense slowly pushes its way forward. It is not sight or sound this time, but smell. The air below deck is thick and heavy, pressing against your face with every inhale. It is impossible to ignore, and over time, impossible not to associate with survival. The scent is a dense mixture, warm tar sealing the planks, old rope damp with seawater, sweat soaked into wool and leather. Beneath it all, the sour note of bilge water sloshing unseen below the floorboards. This smell would repel anyone stepping aboard for the first time. Yet for you, lying here in winter, it carries a strange reassurance. It means the ship is sealed. It means the wind is kept out. Ship logs and maintenance records from the medieval period frequently mention tar as both a waterproofing material and a preservative. Sailors lived with its smell constantly, and many noted that freshly tarred seams helped block drafts. That practical function turned odor into comfort. The stronger the smell, the tighter the ship felt against the cold. You breathe shallowly at first, then deeper. The air is not clean, but it is warmer than the night outside. Every breath warms it further. Around you, dozens of bodies contribute to this shared pocket of heat, slowly raising the temperature by degrees that matter more than words. There is a curious detail tucked into a handful of sailors' letters and port anecdotes. Some men claimed that certain smells helped them sleep, particularly tar and smoke. They believed these scents calmed the nerves and kept away illness. Others found them unbearable. Medical understanding at the time offered no clear explanation, and modern researchers still differ on whether familiarity alone explains the comfort these odors provided. As you lie still, you begin to separate the layers of smell without trying to. The sharpness of salt, the earthy dampness of wood, the faint sweetness of old rum spilled long ago. Each layer tells you something about where you are and how enclosed the space is. In winter, enclosure is safety. The ship creaks again, softly, and the smell shifts as air moves through narrow gaps. It is never stagnant for long. Fresh, cold air sneaks in, mixing briefly before being warmed again by breath and body heat. This constant exchange keeps the space alive, even if it feels heavy. Some historians have suggested that pirates may have tolerated poor air quality better than land dwellers simply because they had no choice. Others argue that prolonged exposure shaped their expectations, making foul smells a sign of normalcy rather than danger. Whatever the explanation, your body does not recoil. It settles. Nearby, someone exhales loudly, then snores once before stopping. The sound blends into the low background noise of the ship. You notice how smell and sound work together here. Both become signals that you are surrounded, enclosed, protected in a rough way. As time passes, the scent fades into the background of awareness. It no longer demands attention. It becomes part of the environment your mind accepts as it drifts toward rest. The human brain is adaptable like that, learning quickly what to ignore in order to sleep. Cold still presses at the edges of your body, but the air you breathe no longer feels sharp. It feels used, warmed, shared. That shared quality brings comfort deeper than clean air ever could. You shift once more, inhaling slowly, letting the smell anchor you to the present moment. You are not lost at sea. You are not exposed. You are here, inside wood and tar and human effort, carried forward through the winter night. Sleep deepens again. Not fully, but enough. The scent of survival lingers as you drift, holding you in place while the ship moves on. You are warmer now, not because the night has softened, but because bodies have shifted closer together. This happens gradually, almost without permission. No one announces it. No one asks. As sleep loosens muscles and defenses, people drift toward heat the way cold metal drifts toward flame. Your shoulder presses against another chest. A knee rests lightly against your thigh. Someone's back fits into the curve of your ribs as if the space was made for it. The warmth is subtle at first, then unmistakable. It seeps through wool and canvas, slow but steady, and your body responds by relaxing just enough to stay asleep. Sharing body heat was not an act of affection aboard pirate ships. It was a practiced survival technique. Accounts from sailors, prisoners, and even shipwreck survivors consistently describe nights spent pressed together for warmth during cold voyages. Human bodies generate heat whether they intend to or not, and in winter, that heat becomes a resource. You feel it now, radiating through layers, filling gaps the ship cannot seal. Breathing becomes synchronized without effort. Inhale, exhale. The rise and fall around you creates a gentle rhythm, like waves within waves. This closeness dulls the cold that creeps along your spine and down your arms. Your hands, once stiff, regain a little flexibility. Fingers uncurl, jaw loosens. There is a detail buried in several maritime diaries that rarely makes its way into popular history. Sailors often described warmth as something that could be stolen or lost. A man who rolled away in his sleep might wake colder, weaker, and resentful without knowing why. Others learned to anchor themselves lightly against crewmates, maintaining contact without causing discomfort. The practice was unspoken, refined through countless nights. You become aware of weight as well as warmth. A forearm rests across your midsection. It is heavy, but you do not move it. The pressure itself blocks drafts. Air cannot easily slip between bodies pressed together. What would feel intrusive on land feels sensible here. There are stories passed down through seafaring communities that speak of crews who refused to share warmth, clinging to pride or discomfort, and paid for it with illness. Whether those stories are exaggerated warnings or accurate recollections is unclear. What is clear is that winter punished isolation. Researchers examining shipboard health patterns often note higher survival rates among groups that slept communally during cold weather, though the records are incomplete and uneven. Your face is still exposed. Cold brushes your cheeks and nose, but your core remains guarded by layers and living heat. The contrast sharpens your awareness of just how fragile comfort is out here. One shift too far, one body rolling away, and the balance changes. Someone nearby shivers briefly, a small involuntary tremor that ripples through the group. You feel it and respond without thinking. Drawing slightly closer, the shivering stops. This is not kindness in the modern sense. It is cooperation at its most basic level. There is an odd note in an old sailor's tale from the North Sea that mentions winter crews sleeping back to back, believing it confused evil spirits drawn to warmth. The superstition sounds strange now, but the arrangement itself was practical. Back-to-back contact creates a broad surface area for heat exchange and leaves fewer exposed edges. Whether driven by fear or instinct, the result was the same. As the ship rolls, bodies shift together and apart by inches. Each movement is negotiated unconsciously, guided by warmth and balance. No one fully wakes. Sleep continues in layers, thin but persistent. You notice how smells change when people are close. Breath carries the faint scent of rum, of salted food, of wool worn too long. These smells mix and soften, becoming less distinct. They no longer signal individual presence, but collective endurance. At some point, your arm falls across another body. The contact surprises you just enough to flicker awareness, but not enough to pull you awake. The skin beneath layers is warm, alive. The simple confirmation brings a strange comfort. You are not alone in this fight against the cold. Historical descriptions of pirate crews often emphasize their violence, their disorder, their disregard for rules. Yet moments like this reveal another side. Cooperation born of necessity, shared vulnerability. Winter stripped away hierarchy when it came to sleep. Rank mattered less than proximity to warmth. There is debate among historians about whether pirates were more egalitarian than naval crews, especially in daily living conditions. Some argue that shared hardship created stronger bonds. Others point out that power dynamics persisted even in sleep. Tonight, pressed together in the dark, those arguments feel distant. What matters is that no one freezes alone. Your thoughts drift again, slower now. Dreams come, shaped by heat and pressure. You dream of being buried in sand under the sun, only your face exposed, warmth everywhere else. The image is simple, calming. When the ship creaks louder and the dream thins, the warmth remains. Cold still exists. It has not been defeated. It waits at the edges of the group, probing for weakness. But for now, the circle holds. Bodies form a living barrier against the night. Your breathing deepens. The ship continues its steady movement through dark water. Winter presses on from outside, but inside this small cluster of human heat, sleep finally settles more firmly. You rest, held not by comfort, but by each other. Sleep loosens again, as a different kind of warmth brushes your awareness. It is faint, uneven, and carries a dry edge that cuts through the heavier smells below deck. Fire, not roaring, not bold, but present. Somewhere nearby, a small, controlled glow holds back the cold just enough to matter. You do not see it at first. Your eyes remain closed, but your senses recognize the change. The air feels less sharp when you inhale. Your fingers tingle slightly as circulation improves. This is the quiet influence of a brazier, tucked into a metal pan, watched carefully by whoever drew the short straw for night duty. It is well recorded in maritime regulations and port ordinances that open flames aboard wooden ships were considered one of the greatest dangers at sea. Fire could destroy a vessel faster than storm or enemy. Even pirate crews, known for bending rules, understood this risk. That is why fire below decks was never casual. It was calculated, limited, and constantly monitored. You picture it now without opening your eyes. A shallow iron container filled with glowing coals rather than flame. No tall tongues of fire, only dull red heat. Ash packed tightly, sometimes sand layered beneath to protect the deck. The heat radiates upward and outward, subtle but steady. Your body responds immediately. Muscles soften another degree. Shoulders drop. The cold that once sat heavily in your chest lifts just enough to allow deeper breathing. This warmth does not reach everyone equally. Those closest feel it first. Others receive it secondhand, through warmed air and bodies that have already absorbed some of its energy. There is an old shipboard habit mentioned in scattered logs that speaks to how valuable this heat was. Crew members would rotate positions through the night, inching closer to the brazier during each shift, then moving away without complaint. No one stayed warm forever. Fairness mattered less than survival. You might feel the warmth now, but you know it will fade when someone else takes your place. A curious detail appears in a handful of sailor stories from colder waters. Some crews believed that fire below deck could anger the sea itself, especially in winter. They spoke of storms following careless heat, as if the ocean sensed the intrusion. Whether this belief came from coincidence or fear, it reinforced caution. Fires were kept low, almost secretive, like something borrowed rather than owned. As you lie still, you hear the faint clink of metal as someone adjusts the brazier. The sound is careful, deliberate. No one rushes around fire on a ship. Movements slow, voices drop to whispers if they speak at all. Even pirates respected that. The warmth brings with it a different smell. Dry ash, old charcoal, a hint of smoke trapped in wool and hair. It blends with tar and salt, creating a layered scent that signals shelter. This combination does something subtle to your mind. It evokes land, hearths, enclosed spaces where fire belongs. That association calms you more than the heat itself. Some maritime scholars remain unconvinced that pirates used below-deck heating as often as folklore suggests. They argue that the risk outweighed the benefit, especially for ships already prone to leaks and decay. Others point to archaeological finds of fire pans and ash deposits in shipwrecks as evidence that controlled heat was more common than official rules admit. The truth likely sits between caution and necessity, shaped by weather and desperation. Your face still feels cool. Fire does not reach everywhere, but your core stays guarded now, layered by clothing, bodies, and this faint artificial warmth. The combination feels almost luxurious after the raw exposure of the deck above. Someone nearby shifts, extending hands toward the heat for a moment before pulling them back. Fingers are vulnerable. Too close, and skin dries or burns. Too far, and numbness returns. The balance is learned through experience rather than instruction. You drift again, half dreaming. In your mind, the brazier becomes a campfire on shore. You hear crackling that does not exist. You smell pine instead of tar. When the ship creaks louder and pulls you back, the glow remains steady, patient. Fire also changes sound. The ship seems quieter when warmth fills the air. Wood expands slightly. Joints settle. The constant complaints of the hull soften into lower tones. Whether this is real or imagined hardly matters. The effect is soothing. There is a practical reason fire mattered beyond comfort. Cold stiffens joints, slows reaction, dulls thought. Crews that froze through the night performed worse the next day. They hauled lines slower. They climbed less surely. Fire, even limited, preserved function. Period. Accounts from northern voyages quietly acknowledge this without praise or poetry. As minutes pass, the warmth fades again. Someone else has taken your place nearer the brazier. Air cools. Muscles tense slightly in response. Yet the cold no longer feels shocking. The memory of heat lingers, like an afterimage. Your breathing remains slow. You accept the cycle. Warmth arrives. Warmth leaves. You adapt. That adaptation is what keeps you alive through winter nights like this one. The brazier will be extinguished before dawn. No one risks flame when sleep deepens and vigilance drops. But for these hours, it has done its work. It has pushed back the cold just enough to let rest take hold. You sink back into sleep, carrying the echo of warmth with you, while the ship moves steadily through dark water, guarded by iron, ash, and careful hands. Sleep shatters without warning. Not fully, not into panic, but into alertness sharpened by motion. The ship no longer rocks gently. It heaves. A deeper roll lifts your body, then sets it down again, with a slow, heavy insistence. Winter storms do not announce themselves politely. They arrive like a change in mood, sudden and undeniable. You do not open your eyes right away. You feel the storm first. Wind presses harder against the hull. The sound of water changes from rhythmic slaps to long rushing surges. Somewhere above, canvas strains, pulling against rope with a low animal groan. The warmth you gathered earlier thins as air begins to move faster through every crack. Storm nights were feared by sailors of every allegiance. Surviving nautical records describe winter gales as especially dangerous because cold air stiffened rigging and slowed response. Frozen ropes cut hands. Icy decks turned footing treacherous. Even experienced crews moved more cautiously when storms arrived in the cold months. Bodies around you tense in response. Someone sits up briefly, then lies back down when no order comes. Another mutters a curse under their breath. Sleep does not disappear during storms, it fractures. It becomes a series of shallow rests punctuated by movement and sound. The ship tilts again, farther this time. You brace instinctively, hooking an arm around a coil of rope, anchoring yourself against the motion. This is how you sleep now. Part rest, part readiness. Muscles remain engaged, prepared to react even while your eyes stay closed. There is a detail mentioned in several first-hand sea accounts that captures this kind of night perfectly. Sailors wrote that storms taught the body to sleep in pieces, never fully surrendering consciousness. That skill was learned, not taught. Those who could not manage it often grew exhausted or reckless. Water forces its way through seams and hatches. You feel dampness creep across the deck, cold and unwelcome. Cloth beneath you absorbs it quickly, turning heavy. Wet cold is sharper than dry. It steals warmth faster, leaving a faint ache behind. Someone nearby pulls their knees tighter to their chest. Another shifts closer, reforming the cluster broken by movement. Shared warmth becomes harder to maintain as the ship bucks, but no one gives up on it entirely. There is an odd belief found in fragments of sailor folklore that storms carried voices, especially at night. The wind howling through rigging sounded to some like whispered warnings or mocking laughter. Whether fear shaped these perceptions or the sounds themselves invited imagination is unclear. What matters is that the noise feels alive, unpredictable. Above deck, shouted commands rise and fall, blurred by wind. You catch only pieces, short words, familiar tones, no screaming. That is a good sign. Experienced crews spoke calmly even when conditions worsened. Panic spread faster than any storm. The ship leans sharply, then rights itself. Your stomach lifts, then settles. The sensation is unsettling, but not unfamiliar. Over time, the body learns to trust the vessel, even when everything else feels uncertain. Wood bends, ropes strain, but the ship holds. Some maritime historians question whether pirates face storms with less discipline than naval crews, given their reputation for disorder. Others point to evidence that pirate ships were often highly efficient in bad weather, precisely because survival demanded it. Tonight, lying here in the dark, you sense that discipline in the way movements remain controlled, purposeful, restrained. Cold intensifies as wind pulls heat from every surface. The brazier from earlier is gone now. Fire and storms do not mix. You rely again on layers, bodies, and instinct. You tuck your chin lower. You draw your arms tighter. Small adjustments matter more now. Sleep tries to return, but the storm resists. Dreams come in flashes. Images of crashing water, endless falling. Then the ship steadies briefly, and rest slips back in, thin and fragile. There is a practical rhythm to storm nights that seasoned sailors recognize. Bursts of activity, long waits, sudden lurches followed by uneasy calm. Your body rides these waves, even when your mind drifts elsewhere. Another surge sends water sloshing across the deck. It soaks through clothing, cold biting immediately. You grit your teeth and shift slightly, finding a drier patch. Comfort is constantly renegotiated during storms. Nothing stays settled for long. At some point, exhaustion begins to outweigh fear. Muscles ache from tension. Eyes grow heavy again. The storm becomes background noise rather than immediate threat. This surrender is not foolishness. It is necessity. The body must rest when it can, even under imperfect conditions. You feel someone press closer again, reclaiming shared warmth after being tossed apart. The contact is reassuring. Human presence anchors you amid the chaos. The wind roars, then fades slightly. The ship's movement smooths just enough to signal the worst has passed, at least for now. Storms rarely end cleanly. They loosen their grip in stages. Sleep returns, deeper than expected. Not because danger is gone, but because you have adapted. The body learns quickly when survival depends on it. As you drift, the sounds blur. Wind becomes a low hum. Water becomes distant. The ship carries you onward, battered but steady. Winter storms test everything at sea, including sleep. Tonight, you endure another one. Half awake, half dreaming, carried forward by wood, water, and the quiet resilience of those around you. When the storm finally loosens its grip, it does not leave behind silence. Instead, it changes the texture of sound around you. The roar fades into a steady rush. The violent snaps of canvas soften into long sighs. The ship still moves, but now it speaks more gently, as if tired from the effort. This is when you become aware of sound itself, not as background noise, but as a constant companion to sleep. On land, silence often signals safety. At sea, especially in winter, silence can feel wrong, too still, too empty. The ship's noises reassure you that everything is still working, still alive. The hull creaks in slow, measured tones. Each sound carries information your body has learned to read. A sharp crack might signal strain. A long groan suggests adjustment. Tonight, the sounds are low and patient. Wood settling back into place after stress. Ropes relaxing slightly after being pulled tight. Sailors across centuries described ships as having voices, and this was not poetic exaggeration. Living aboard a vessel trained the ear to notice subtle changes. Period journals often mention crew members waking instantly to unfamiliar noises while sleeping through constant ones. The brain filtered danger from normalcy, even in rest. You lie still, letting the familiar sounds wash over you. Somewhere above, footsteps move with less urgency now. A bucket scrapes softly. Someone hums under their breath, barely audible, perhaps without realizing it. These human sounds blend with the ship's own, creating a layered lullaby shaped by labor and survival. The water against the hull produces a steady rhythm, not the sharp slap of waves during the storm, but a softer push and pull. It resembles breathing. Inhale as the ship rises, exhale as it settles. Your own breathing begins to match it again. Slower now, deeper. There is a small detail noted in accounts from northern voyages that captures this moment well. Sailors often wrote that they slept best not when seas were calm, but when the ship moved predictably. Perfect stillness left them uneasy, while gentle motion carried them into deeper rest. Motion meant the ship was alive and responding. You notice how sound travels differently below deck. Everything is muffled, rounded. Sharp noises lose their edges. Even voices soften as they pass through layers of wood and air. This makes sleep easier, allowing rest to return after the storm's interruption. There is also the sound of other bodies, breathing, occasional coughs, a soft shift of fabric. These sounds confirm that you are not alone. That shared presence calms something primitive inside you. Cold nights are endured collectively. Some historians suggest that constant noise at sea trained sailors to sleep more deeply once exhaustion set in. Others argue the opposite, claiming that light sleep was a survival adaptation. Both may be true. What you experience now sits between those ideas. You sleep, but lightly, ready to surface if the soundscape changes. A curious note appears in an old sailor's letter, describing how newcomers struggled most with sound rather than motion. The endless creaking drove them restless. Veterans, however, found silence disturbing and slept poorly in port. Their bodies had learned to associate noise with safety. You feel that shift happening now. The cold remains present, but it no longer dominates your attention. Sound takes its place. Each familiar creak reassures. Each rhythmic splash steadies the mind. Your muscles release tension you did not realize they were holding. As minutes pass, your thoughts drift without forming clear images. Dreams come as impressions rather than stories. Dark water, wooden beams, warmth spreading slowly. These fragments blend with sound until you are no longer sure where awareness ends and sleep begins. The ship gives a longer groan, deeper than the others, then settles. You wait, instinctively, but nothing follows. The sound fades back into the background, and your body accepts it as normal. There is debate among maritime scholars about how sailors interpreted ship sound psychologically. Some believe the noises created constant, low-level stress. Others argue that familiarity transformed them into comfort. Your experience suggests the latter. Familiar sound becomes reassurance rather than threat. A faint drip echoes nearby, water leaking through a seam, collected in a bucket. Drip, pause, drip. The pattern is steady, predictable. It becomes another rhythm layered into the night. You shift slightly, adjusting your position to maintain warmth. The movement creates a soft rustle of fabric. Nearby bodies respond in kind, subtle and unconscious. The cluster reforms, preserving shared heat without discussion. Sleep deepens again, carried on sound rather than stillness. The ship's voice does not stop. It continues speaking through the night, guiding your rest as surely as any lullaby. Above deck, stars may be breaking through cloud cover. Below, you know nothing of that. Your world is wood, sound, breath, and warmth. Winter presses on from outside, but inside this enclosed space, sound builds a sense of continuity that allows rest to take hold once more. You drift further now, sinking into the rhythm of the ship itself. Each creak becomes familiar. Each splash fades into calm. Sleep wraps around you again, thin but persistent, as the vessel carries you onward through the cold medieval night. Sleep thins again as a different sensation rises to the surface, warm and faintly sweet. Taste, or rather, the memory of it. Before the night fully took hold, you drank something hot, or at least hot enough to matter. That warmth lingers now, echoing in your chest as your body settles back into rest. Food before sleep was not indulgence on a pirate ship. It was preparation. Cold nights demanded fuel. Sailors understood this instinctively, long before calories had names. Accounts from seafaring communities consistently mention warm drinks and heavy foods taken late in the day, especially during winter voyages. The goal was simple: go to sleep with heat already inside you. You remember the mug in your hands earlier, rough wood or dented metal, steam rising briefly before the wind stole it away. The liquid burned slightly, going down, not painfully, just enough to remind you that warmth was entering your body. Grog, watered rum, or sometimes a thin broth made from salted meat, and whatever scraps could be spared. Nothing fancy, everything functional. Your stomach feels settled now, not full, but satisfied. That matters. Hunger sharpens cold. An empty body loses heat faster, shakes more, sleeps worse. Period descriptions from sailors often note that nights following poor meals were the hardest, with shivering that never quite stopped. There is a detail tucked into several maritime journals that speaks to this habit. Some crews insisted on a hot drink before nightfall whenever fuel allowed, even if supplies were low. They believed warmth taken in carried through the night better than warmth applied from outside. Whether this belief was fully accurate is debated, but the practice endured because it felt effective. As you breathe slowly, you feel the residual heat deep in your core. It has not vanished. It spreads gradually, supporting the warmth gathered from clothing and bodies around you. This layered approach to survival defines winter nights at sea. No single solution is enough. Everything contributes a little. The smell of the drink lingers faintly. Rum, herbs, salt. It blends with the heavier scents of tar and wool, creating a complex reminder of nourishment. This sensory overlap calms the nervous system, anchoring you in the present. Some sailors carried small personal rituals tied to food and drink, a particular sip saved for last, a whispered phrase before swallowing. These habits offered comfort in uncertainty. Others scoffed at such behavior, yet still followed routines of their own without naming them. You shift slightly, feeling the warmth in your belly respond. Muscles relax another fraction. Your breathing deepens. Sleep presses closer again, heavier than before. The body trusts that it has been fed, that it has the energy to endure the night. Scholars examining maritime diets often point out how monotonous ship food was, especially in winter. Salted meat, hard bread, dried legumes. Yet even these limited options provided crucial sustenance. Pirates, with access to plunder and irregular resupply, sometimes ate better than naval sailors. Other times, far worse. The quality varied wildly. Tonight, what matters is that something warm passed your lips before darkness settled in. There is an odd anecdote from a northern voyage that mentions sailors rubbing warm drink residue onto their hands before sleep, believing it helped retain heat. The logic is questionable, but the act itself speaks to desperation and creativity. When warmth is scarce, every idea feels worth trying. Your mouth feels dry now. Thirst tugs lightly at the edges of awareness, but you ignore it. Drinking too much invites waking later, and leaving your warm spot is not worth it. Sleep demands compromise. Around you, others settle deeper as well. Bellies full enough, bodies close enough, the ship's soundscape steady enough. The night finds a rhythm again. Food does more than fuel the body. It reassures the mind. Hunger triggers vigilance. Satisfaction allows surrender. You feel that shift happening now. Thoughts slowing, worries softening. A distant clang echoes faintly above deck, then fades. Perhaps a pot being stowed. Perhaps a mug knocked aside. The sound reminds you of the small human acts that make survival possible. Eating, drinking, preparing. Your dreams take on warmth now. You imagine sitting near a hearth, steam rising from a bowl. The image is simple, comforting. When it dissolves, the warmth remains. The cold outside has not changed. Winter still presses against the hull. But inside you, fuel burns quietly, steady and patient. That internal fire matters more than any brazier tonight. Sleep deepens once more. The ship carries you onward. Your body, fed and warmed, does what it can with what it has. And for now, that is enough to keep the cold at bay. The warmth you have gathered begins to invite an old, familiar irritation. It starts as a faint tickle along your calf, easy to ignore. Then another, sharper this time, just above your waist. You do not move right away. Movement risks losing heat, and you have learned to weigh discomfort against cold very carefully. This is the other side of shipboard sleep. The living companions you never invited, lice, fleas, sometimes mites, they thrive in exactly the conditions that help you survive winter. Close bodies, heavy clothing, wool worn too long, heat held in the dark. You feel one crawl, light as a whisper. Scratching brings relief, but also consequence. Bare skin meets cold air, and the warmth you worked so hard to keep slips away. You compromise, rubbing through fabric instead, pressing fingers hard enough to crush whatever moves beneath without fully exposing yourself. It is a practiced motion, done half asleep. Sailors' personal accounts from medieval voyages frequently mention vermin as an unavoidable part of life at sea. Ships could be scrubbed, aired, and salted, but once bodies lived together for weeks, parasites followed. Winter did not drive them away. If anything, it concentrated them. You shift slightly, trying not to disturb the cluster of bodies around you. Someone nearby scratches too, a soft rasp of fabric against skin. Another exhales sharply, irritated but too tired to fully wake. These small sounds pass through the group without comment. Everyone understands. There is a detail buried in several port city testimonies that reveals how normalized this was. Sailors often identified long voyages by the state of their skin rather than distance traveled. More bites meant more time at sea. It was an unspoken measure of endurance. The itch sharpens briefly, then dulls as your body warms again. Cold numbs sensation. Heat wakes it. Winter nights create a strange cycle where discomfort rises and falls alongside temperature. You learn to ride it rather than fight it. Some pirates attempted crude solutions, turning clothes inside out, hanging garments near smoke during brief stops, even rubbing tar lightly along seams where insects hid. These methods offered limited relief, but no cure. Complete freedom from pests belonged to land, not ships. There is a persistent belief in old maritime folklore that certain herbs kept lice away. Wormwood, lavender, sage. Sailors tucked sprigs into clothing or bedding when they could find them. Whether these plants truly helped or simply provided psychological comfort remains uncertain. Modern analysis suggests minimal effect, yet the belief endured because hope mattered. You feel another bite along your shoulder blade. This one draws a quiet grunt from you before you can stop it. The person beside you stirs, then settles again. No one pulls away. Separation invites cold, far worse than itch. Historians examining shipboard health often note that parasites contributed to infections and fever, especially when skin broke under constant scratching. Yet crews rarely prioritized eradication. Survival demanded attention elsewhere. Cold, storms, hunger. Compared to those, lice were tolerated. You adjust your collar higher, sealing off one more pathway. Wool scratches, but it also blocks movement. The itch fades to a background hum. You accept it, folding it into the experience of rest at sea. Sleep becomes lighter again. Not gone, just thinner. Thoughts drift without direction. Sensation replaces imagery. Warmth, pressure, itch, breath. These become the markers of awareness. Someone near your feet shifts and mutters something unintelligible, perhaps reacting to the same irritation, perhaps dreaming. It does not matter. The sound fades quickly. There is an odd note in an old sailor's account describing how some men learned to fall asleep while scratching in rhythm, turning irritation into a repetitive motion that lulled them into rest. The idea sounds almost humorous, yet you understand it now. The body adapts to anything if given enough nights. You scratch once more, gently, then still your hand. The warmth returns, muscles soften, the itch retreats just enough to allow rest. Winter magnifies everything. Cold sharpens discomfort. Fatigue lowers tolerance. Yet the human capacity to endure remains astonishing. You lie here, alive, breathing, sharing warmth, even as tiny creatures test your patience. Sleep presses closer again. The ship creaks softly. Water moves in familiar patterns. Your body recalibrates, prioritizing warmth and rest over irritation. The itch will return. You know that. It always does. But not now. Not at this moment. For now, your breathing slows, your thoughts blur, and rest claims you again. You drift back into shallow sleep, carrying the itch with you like a distant echo, one more challenge folded into the long winter night at sea. Rest returns in a cautious way, the kind that never quite lets go of awareness. As your breathing slows, another layer of the night settles in. It is quieter now, calmer, and in that calm, beliefs begin to surface. Not spoken aloud, not debated, but felt. This is when superstition drifts through the ship as surely as cold air. You sense it in the small gestures around you. A hand touches a wooden beam before settling. Someone murmurs a phrase under their breath, not loud enough to be heard clearly, but steady enough to feel intentional. These habits are not taught formally. They are absorbed over time, learned by watching and copying, passed from older sailors to newer ones without explanation. Life at sea encourages belief. The environment feels alive. Wind changes without warning. Water behaves with moods of its own. In winter, when nights stretch long and unforgiving, the urge to find meaning in ritual grows stronger. You feel that pull now, even if you would not name it. There is a long-standing maritime belief that sleep itself was vulnerable, that while the body rested, something essential wandered. For some sailors, this meant the soul. For others, luck or protection. That is why certain actions were avoided before sleep. Whistling below deck, turning a hat upside down, pointing feet directly toward the bow. None of these rules were universal, but enough people followed them to shape the atmosphere of the night. You remember hearing, earlier in the voyage, a warning spoken casually. Never sleep with a knife tucked under your pillow. It invites bad dreams. Another voice disagreed immediately, claiming a blade kept nightmares away. Both men believed themselves completely. You took note without choosing a side. Such contradictions are common in seafaring belief. One practice comforts one sailor and frightens another. There is no authority here to decide which is correct. Survival leaves room for many truths. As you lie still, you become aware of an object near your hand, a small charm carved from bone or wood. It is not yours, but it rests close enough to touch. Perhaps someone dropped it earlier. Perhaps it was placed deliberately. You do not move it. Disturbing protective objects is considered unwise, especially at night. Sailors carried many such items. Coins drilled with holes, knots tied in specific patterns, scraps of cloth taken from loved ones. These objects rarely appeared in official records, yet they surface often in personal letters and recovered belongings. They offered a sense of control in an environment that stripped control away. There is a belief mentioned in several coastal traditions that winter nights at sea thinned the boundary between worlds. Cold, darkness, and exhaustion made sailors more open to influence. Whether this idea arose from genuine fear or simply from the intensity of the experience is difficult to say. What matters is that it shaped behavior. You notice how people position themselves carefully. No one crosses directly over another person's legs. No one steps between sleepers unnecessarily. These actions are said to bring misfortune. They also happen to disturb rest and warmth. Practicality and superstition often overlap so closely that they become indistinguishable. The ship creaks softly, a sound that some interpret as complaint, others as reassurance. In moments like this, interpretation matters. Belief becomes a way to soothe the mind when explanation fails. There is an old sailor saying, preserved in fragments of oral history, that suggests sleep at sea is borrowed, not owned. You take it when you can, return it when demanded. This idea encourages acceptance rather than resistance. You sleep lightly, gratefully, without expectation of comfort. Your own thoughts brush against belief now. You find yourself hoping the ship holds, that the cold eases by morning, that the wind stays manageable. Hope and superstition blend easily. Both look toward outcomes beyond immediate control. Some historians argue that superstition served as an emotional stabilizer for crews under constant stress. Others see it as a source of anxiety that compounded fear. Your experience suggests both. Belief can calm or unsettle depending on the night. Someone nearby whispers a name, perhaps in a dream, perhaps as a quiet prayer. The sound fades quickly. No one comments. At sea, private belief is respected as long as it does not endanger the ship. You adjust slightly, careful not to cross invisible boundaries. Your hand remains close to your body. Your feet stay aligned with others. These small acts feel protective, even if you cannot explain why. The itch from earlier has faded again, replaced by a gentle awareness of contact and warmth. The night feels less hostile now, more watchful. You are being carried, not tested. As sleep deepens, belief loosens its grip. Ritual gives way to rest. The mind no longer needs explanation. It needs only reassurance. You drift again, held by wood, water, warmth, and the quiet comfort of shared habits. Superstition fades into the background, doing its work without demanding attention. The winter night continues, steady and dark, and you sleep within it, guarded by belief, routine, and the unspoken understanding that here, survival is as much mental as it is physical. Sleep shifts again, not because of cold or storm, but because of order. Even here, even now, structure exists. Pirate life is often imagined as chaos, but nights reveal a quieter system beneath the surface. Where you sleep is not random. It is shaped by rules that are rarely written down, yet firmly understood. You sense it in the way bodies arrange themselves. Certain spots fill first, others remain open until later. No one argues, no one announces claims. The order has been established long before this night, reinforced by routine and consequence. Pirate crews operated under articles of agreement, informal contracts that governed behavior aboard ship. These articles often addressed division of plunder, discipline, and compensation for injury. Less obvious, but equally important, were the customs that grew around them. Sleeping arrangements fell into this category. While not always written, they were enforced through expectation and peer pressure. Those with specific duties slept closer to their stations. The helmsman rested nearer the stern. Sail handlers claimed spots that allowed quick access to rigging. Gunners positioned themselves closer to weapons. This was not about privilege. It was about response time. Winter nights did not excuse readiness. You find yourself where you are because it makes sense. You are close enough to be woken quickly, but sheltered enough to survive the cold. Someone else lies closer to the ladder leading up, chosen or assigned because they are expected to move first if trouble comes. There is a quiet fairness to this system. Newer crew members often take colder, more exposed spots until they earn trust. Veterans claim better positions not through force, but through reputation. They have proven themselves in storms and fights. Their bodies have learned the ship's language. Others defer without complaint. An overlooked detail in several pirate testimonies is how disputes over sleeping space were handled. They rarely escalated. A harsh word here could weaken the crew. Instead, grievances were remembered and settled later, often through redistribution of loot or labor. Night demanded cooperation. You feel the presence of authority even without seeing it. The captain may be asleep somewhere aft, but his influence reaches here. His tolerance for disorder sets the tone. Some captains allowed flexibility, encouraging shared warmth and comfort. Others enforced strict separation, believing discipline preserved strength. Crews adjusted accordingly. There is disagreement among historians about how egalitarian pirate ships truly were, especially during daily routines like sleep. Some accounts paint a picture of shared hardship and minimal hierarchy. Others describe clear divisions maintained even at night. The reality likely varied from ship to ship, shaped by leadership and circumstance. You notice how injured crew members are positioned carefully. Those with wounds sleep closer to warmth and protection. This is not charity, it is strategy. A man who heals faster contributes sooner. Pirate articles often specified compensation for injury, but nightly care went beyond formal agreement. A subtle shift occurs as someone arrives late to the sleeping space. You sense movement. A body hesitates, then settles into a remaining gap. No one protests. The order adjusts smoothly, accommodating without disruption. This fluidity keeps the peace. There is a curious practice mentioned in a handful of sea stories, where crews rotated sleeping positions weekly during long winter voyages. The idea was to share discomfort evenly, preventing resentment. Whether this was widespread or limited to certain ships is unclear, but the logic fits pirate values of shared risk. Your own position feels earned, though you may not consciously know why. You have stood your watch. You have hauled rope in freezing rain. You have not complained. These things matter. They shape where you lie now, how close you are to warmth. As you settle deeper, you become aware of how this order calms the mind. Uncertainty breeds anxiety. Structure reduces it. Even a rough system offers predictability in a hostile environment. That predictability allows sleep. The ship creaks softly, acknowledging movement without alarm. Bodies remain still. The order holds. Someone nearby murmurs briefly, then quiets, perhaps dreaming, perhaps responding to discomfort. No one intervenes. The night absorbs small disturbances easily when balance exists. There is an old observation recorded by a traveller who encountered pirates in port. He noted that their apparent lawlessness vanished aboard ship, replaced by strict adherence to shared rules. Survival demanded it. Sleep revealed it most clearly. You breathe slowly, feeling the warmth and pressure of your place within the group. You are neither isolated nor crowded. The space fits. That fitting is not accidental. It is the product of countless nights like this one, refined by experience. Cold still presses at the edges, but order keeps it from overwhelming you. You know where you belong. You know what is expected. That knowledge settles the mind more effectively than any blanket. As sleep deepens again, you trust the system around you. If danger comes, someone closer to the ladder will move. If cold worsens, bodies will shift. If morning arrives, the order will dissolve and reform again. For now, the rules hold quietly in the dark. You rest within them, supported by a structure built not of law books, but of shared understanding, necessity, and the unspoken agreement that everyone here survives together, or not at all. Sleep lifts gently as the ship's motion changes again, not from storm this time, but from approach. The rolling becomes shallower. The water sounds different, closer, busier. You do not open your eyes yet, but your body senses it. Land is near. Even in winter, even in darkness, the ship knows when it is no longer alone in open water. When pirates took shelter in captured harbors or friendly coves, nights changed in subtle but powerful ways. The cold did not vanish, but it behaved differently. Wind lost its endless reach. The ship no longer strained against open sea. For the first time in days, the night offered something close to stillness. You feel the difference immediately. The deck beneath you steadies. The long creaks soften into shorter, sharper sounds as ropes tighten and the hull nudges gently against dock or anchor line. That reduction in movement alone deepens rest more than you expect. Eventually, someone moves quietly through the sleeping space, whispering just enough to stir those who need to wake. No urgency, no alarm. This is routine. A harbor means options. Options mean warmth. When the chance came, pirates often slept ashore, even briefly, not in inns or proper lodgings most of the time, but in warehouses, sheds, abandoned huts, or makeshift shelters near the docks. Captured harbors offered straw, rough, dry, and miraculous. You imagine it now as if you are there. Straw spread thick across a wooden floor. The smell is earthy, clean compared to the ship. It rustles softly when you lie down, shifting to cradle your weight. After nights on planks or swaying hammocks, this feels almost indulgent. Historical port records and traveller accounts make it clear that straw bedding was common across medieval Europe. It insulated against cold ground, trapped air, and kept dampness away from the body. For sailors accustomed to wet decks, straw represented relief far beyond its simplicity. You stretch out more fully here. The cold still touches your face, but your back and legs rest on something that gives. Pressure spreads evenly instead of biting into joints. Muscles you did not realize were tense begin to release. There is a small but telling detail mentioned in several sailor narratives. Many reported sleeping longer and more deeply on straw than they had in weeks, even when the air remained cold. The ground did not move. The mind trusted it. That trust unlocked deeper rest. Others preferred to stay aboard, even when land sleep was available. Ships felt familiar, predictable. Some sailors grew uneasy away from the sounds that had become their lullaby. The creaks and sighs of wood were absent ashore, replaced by silence that felt exposed. You understand both sides. Straw feels wonderful beneath you, but the absence of the ship's rhythm leaves a strange hollow. Your breathing takes longer to settle. You miss the steady movement without knowing why. Captured harbours in winter were rarely warm. Fires were small and carefully watched. Smoke clung low, mixing with cold air, but even limited fire felt generous on land. Flames did not threaten immediate disaster the way they did at sea. There is an old observation recorded by a coastal monk who watched pirates sleep in a seized fishing village. He noted how they arranged themselves tightly around hearths, boots still on, weapons within reach, trusting the warmth but not the surroundings. Rest came, but vigilance remained. You pull straw closer around your sides, tucking it like a blanket. The sound is soft and dry. No water sloshing, no ropes humming, just wind brushing distant walls and the occasional crackle of embers. Some scholars argue that time ashore disrupted pirate routines, making return to shipboard discipline harder. Others believe these brief comforts preserved strength and morale. The truth likely depended on how long the stay lasted and how cold the sea had been before it. Your thoughts drift more freely here. Dreams stretch longer. Images hold together instead of shattering into fragments. You dream of fields, of animals, of warmth that does not fade when you stop paying attention. Yet even in this relative comfort, the night does not fully relax its grip. You remain aware of the door, of shadows, of unfamiliar smells. Land brings its own risks. You turn slightly, straw whispering beneath you, and pull your coat tighter. Habit follows you ashore. Clothing remains bedding. Layers remain armor. Eventually, your body settles into the new stillness. Breathing deepens. The cold retreats to the edges. Sleep grows heavier than it has been in days. For a pirate in winter, this kind of rest feels rare, almost stolen. You take it without guilt, knowing the sea will reclaim you soon enough. As you drift deeper, the image of the ship lingers. You know you will return to it, to planks and motion and shared heat. But for now, straw and stillness hold you. Sleep wraps around you more completely here, quiet and dense, as the winter night passes slowly over land instead of open water. Sleep feels different again, heavier in some ways, lighter in others, as warmth flickers nearby and voices drift through the dark. You are not alone with the night now. You are surrounded by sound that belongs to land. Low laughter, the scrape of stools, the dull thump of boots on wooden floors. You have found your way, briefly, into a tavern. Winter taverns were not places of comfort in the modern sense. They were crowded, smoky, loud, and often filthy. Yet to sailors who had spent weeks exposed to wind and spray, they felt almost luxurious. Thick walls blocked the worst of the cold. A hearth burned openly. The ground did not move. You ease yourself down near the fire, not close enough to scorch, but near enough to feel heat reach your knees and hands. The floor beneath you is hard, but it is dry. That alone feels like a gift. Your coat stays on, boots stay laced. You lean against a bench or wall, letting gravity take over. Period descriptions of port taverns frequently mention sailors sleeping wherever they fell. Once drink and exhaustion overtook them. Chairs, floors, tables, sleep came in awkward positions, but warmth and shelter mattered more than posture. You feel that now. Your spine complains briefly, then quiets. The fire becomes the center of the room, drawing bodies toward it in loose rings. Pirates, fishermen, dockworkers, and travelers all share the same instinct. Heat first, space second. Privacy does not exist here, and no one expects it. The smell is intense. Smoke, spilled ale, wet wool steaming gently as it dries. The scent of cooked food clings to the air, thick and comforting. It settles into your clothes and hair, replacing the sharper tang of salt and tar with something earthier. There is a practical reason taverns felt so appealing in winter. Stone and timber buildings retained heat far better than ships. A hearth that burned all night created a stable pocket of warmth that did not vanish with a change in wind. Sailors slept deeper near these fires, even if the surroundings were chaotic. You hear someone nearby snoring loudly, unconcerned with embarrassment. Another coughs, then laughs weakly. A mug clinks against wood. The noise is constant, but it is human noise, not mechanical. That distinction matters. It signals safety of a certain kind. Some travelers wrote disapprovingly about tavern sleep, describing it as reckless and undisciplined. Others admitted, reluctantly, that it restored men more effectively than nights aboard ship ever could. Warmth reached the bones here. Muscles loosened fully. The body trusted the walls around it. You feel that trust spreading now. Your breathing deepens. Your head nods forward slightly, then settles against your chest. The fire crackles, embers shift. The sound is soothing in a way the ship's creaks are not. It speaks of stability. There is an odd detail preserved in a merchant's journal, describing how sailors often position themselves so their feet face the fire, even if it meant twisting awkwardly. They believed warming the extremities protected the heart. Whether this belief had medical merit is unclear, but the behavior was widespread. You extend your boots just a little closer. Leather warms. Toes regain sensation. The ache that lived there all night finally eases. That relief alone could pull sleep from a weary body. Alcohol plays its part too. Rum, ale, or wine dulls the edge of cold and fatigue. You feel its warmth lingering, though you know it lies a little, offering comfort that fades faster than promised. Still, in this moment, it helps. Some historians argue that tavern sleep increased risk, leaving sailors vulnerable to theft or arrest. Others note that pirate crews often posted watches even in port, protecting their own. The balance between rest and vigilance was always present, even here. You sense that balance now. One ear remains tuned to the room. One part of your mind stays alert, but most of you sinks downward, pulled by heat and exhaustion. The floor beneath you is unforgiving, yet it does not steal warmth the way stone outdoors would. Straw or rushes scattered across it soften the surface slightly, not enough to call it comfortable, but enough to make it possible. Your dreams shift again. They fill with faces and voices, with firelight flickering across walls, with the hum of conversation that fades in and out. You are not isolated in these dreams. You are part of a crowd, held by shared warmth. At some point, the fire burns lower. Someone adds wood. Sparks rise briefly, then settle. You stir but do not wake. The heat returns, steady and gentle. Winter nights in taverns were rarely quiet or orderly, yet they offered something priceless. Rest without exposure. Rest without motion. For a pirate accustomed to sleeping with one eye open, that mattered more than silence. Your body sinks further into sleep now. Muscles release completely. The tension you carried at sea drains away in stages. First the shoulders, then the back, then the legs. When you wake later, stiff and smoky, you will return to the ship or move on to the next shelter. But for now, this place holds you. Firelight dances behind closed eyes. Noise fades into a soft blur. You sleep deeply, surrounded by strangers, protected by walls and flame, while winter presses uselessly against the outside world. Sleep does not always come easily when pain joins the night. You feel it now. A dull ache somewhere beneath the warmth, perhaps in a shoulder-strained hauling rope, or a rib bruised during rough weather. Winter makes every injury louder. Cold sharpens sensation, slows healing, and turns small wounds into constant companions. You shift carefully, testing the limits of comfort without fully waking yourself. Pain responds immediately, a quiet reminder that your body carries more than fatigue. Around you, others carry their own marks. Bandaged hands, wrapped knees, limps hidden during the day, revealed only at night when movement slows. Injuries were common aboard pirate ships. Falls, rope burns, splinters, and blows from shifting cargo left few unscathed. Period medical accounts from coastal surgeons and ship physicians describe a steady stream of sailors seeking treatment for minor wounds that became serious in cold, damp conditions. Winter turned inconvenience into risk. You feel the stiffness settling in as your body cools slightly. Muscles tighten, joints complain. To counter it, you draw warmth closer, tucking injured areas deeper into the shared heat of bodies and layers. This positioning is deliberate. Pain teaches quickly. There is a practice mentioned in several maritime narratives where injured crew were placed centrally within sleeping groups during cold nights, not out of sentiment, but because warmth supported healing. Heat improved circulation. It reduced stiffness by morning. Those who slept alone recovered more slowly. You sense that care around you now. Someone nearby adjusts position to shield your sore side from drafts. The movement is subtle, unconscious perhaps, but effective. Cooperation extends to the wounded, without formal instruction. Sleep becomes shallower when pain flares. Your mind drifts, then snaps back to awareness as an ache pulses. You breathe through it, slow and controlled, letting warmth dull the edge. Over time, the pain recedes into background noise, never gone, but manageable. There is an odd remedy recorded in an old sailor's account describing how men rubbed warm animal fat or oil into aching joints before sleep. The grease trapped heat and reduced friction. Whether the relief came from warmth, massage, or belief remains unclear, but the practice persisted in cold regions. You recall the smell of oil earlier, mixed with tar and wool. Perhaps someone nearby treated a wound before settling down. The scent lingers faintly, another signal of care woven into the night. Illness complicates winter sleep even more. Coughs echo softly around you, wet and persistent. Fevers rise and fall. Cold nights test the strength of lungs and immune systems already strained by poor diet and exhaustion. Sailors with sickness often slept fitfully, plagued by chills and sweats that no amount of layering fully balanced. You hear a cough nearby, followed by a weak groan. Someone shifts closer to the center, guided gently by hands that know what to do, keeping the sick warm, matted. Period letters from port cities note that men who slept cold during illness often worsened quickly. There is disagreement among historians about how effective shipboard care truly was. Some argue that lack of medical knowledge doomed many, regardless of effort. Others point out that warmth, rest, and basic hygiene significantly improved outcomes even without modern treatment. Your experience suggests that small measures mattered. You feel your own aches soften as warmth builds. The body responds slowly but faithfully. Blood flows a little easier. Muscles loosen just enough to allow deeper rest. Pain retreats to a distant hum. Dreams come and go, shaped by discomfort and relief. You dream of stretching without pain, of warmth spreading evenly. When you stir, the ache returns briefly, then settles again as you find the right position. There is a quiet discipline to managing pain at sea. Complaints are rare at night. Sound travels. Disturbing others risks breaking shared warmth. Most endure silently, breathing through discomfort until sleep takes them again. You notice how the ship itself seems gentler now. Movements are smaller, sounds softer. The storm has passed. The cold remains, but it no longer assaults. This calm supports healing as much as any remedy. Some sailors believed that pain eased faster during sleep if the injured body part faced inward toward the ship rather than outward toward the sea. The belief has no clear explanation, yet the practice appears in multiple accounts. Perhaps it simply reduced drafts. Perhaps belief itself played a role. You turn slightly, positioning your sore side inward. The cold retreats. The ache dulls. Whether by physics or faith, relief follows. Sleep deepens again, not because pain is gone, but because it has been accommodated. The body learns to rest around it, folding discomfort into the larger task of survival. Around you, others do the same. Injured, sick, tired, yet resting together in a fragile pocket of warmth. Winter does not pause for healing, but it allows it if you work carefully. Your breathing slows, muscles release, pain fades into the background of awareness. The ship carries you forward, and with it, the quiet hope that morning will bring a little less stiffness, a little more strength. For now, you sleep as well as you can, held by warmth, patience, and the unspoken understanding that tonight, endurance is its own kind of medicine. As your body settles once more, sleep opens a different door. The cold has shaped the night so thoroughly that it begins to shape what you see when your eyes are closed. Dreams do not unfold gently here. They come in fragments, sharp at the edges, colored by temperature and fatigue. You drift into one without noticing the moment it begins. There is water, endless and dark, but it does not frighten you. It feels familiar. The surface moves the way your ship moves, steady and alive. In the dream, you are wrapped tightly in cloth, heavy and warm, yet your face remains exposed to cold air. The contrast mirrors reality so closely that you barely register the difference. Cold alters dreams. Sailors have described this across centuries, noting how winter sleep brought visions that felt more intense, more physical. Heat dreams blur and soften. Cold dreams sharpen. They press closer to waking life. You feel it now. In the dream, your hands ache with cold, just as they did earlier. Your breath fogs. Your body curls inward. The mind does not escape the environment. It carries it forward, reshaping it into images rather than sensations. There is a detail noted in several maritime journals where sailors claimed winter dreams were often shorter but more vivid. They woke remembering fragments clearly, while summer dreams faded quickly. Exhaustion and cold seemed to etch images more deeply into memory. Your dream shifts. You are standing near a fire, but it gives no heat. You move closer, closer still, until sparks brush your skin without warmth. This frustrates you in the dream, creating a quiet urgency. When you stir in your sleep, the frustration fades, replaced by the familiar pressure of bodies nearby and the faint warmth they provide. Some dreamers believed cold allowed the mind to wander closer to truth, stripping away comfort and illusion. Others feared it invited nightmares. Both interpretations appear in old sailor lore. What matters is that winter sleep felt different enough to be remarked upon. Your breathing remains steady as the dream dissolves into another. This one is slower. You are lying beneath layers of fabric that feel endless, each one heavier than the last. You pull them closer, but they never quite reach your face. The cold lingers there, persistent and patient. You shift slightly in the waking world, tucking your chin lower. The movement alters the dream. Suddenly the cold recedes. Warmth spreads. The mind responds instantly to the body's adjustment, blurring the boundary between sleep and wakefulness. This connection fascinated early observers of sleep, long before science attempted explanation. Sailors noticed how small physical changes altered dreams dramatically. A draft across the face might summon visions of wind and flight. Warmth along the spine brought images of fire or sun. You drift again, deeper this time. The dreams grow quieter, less narrative, more sensation. The ship's creaks weave into the background, becoming part of the dream's structure. Water sounds echo softly, transformed into distant waves or breath. There is a belief recorded in a few northern sea traditions that dreams in winter carried warnings, that they reflected the body's needs more directly than waking thought. Hunger, cold, illness, all appeared symbolically. Whether taken seriously or not, sailors often adjusted behavior after restless nights, adding layers or seeking warmth without fully knowing why. Your own dream now presents a simple image: a narrow space, wooden walls close on either side. It feels protective rather than confining. You lie still within it, safe from wind. This image mirrors the enclosed sleeping space aboard ship, reinterpreted as shelter rather than constraint. As the dream fades, you hover near wakefulness. Awareness flickers. You hear someone shift. You feel warmth against your back. The cold still touches your face, but it no longer startles. Some researchers studying historical sleep patterns suggest that fragmented sleep encouraged frequent dreaming, as the mind entered and exited sleep repeatedly. Winter conditions amplified this effect. Nights became a series of shallow descents rather than one long plunge. You experience that now. Dreams arrive, retreat, return. Each time, they grow calmer, less urgent. The body has adjusted to temperature. The mind follows. Another dream surfaces briefly. You are walking across snow that does not crunch beneath your feet. The silence feels deep and heavy. Then a sound interrupts it. Not threatening, just familiar. Wood creaking. The snow melts into planks. You are back aboard ship, and the dream dissolves completely. Your breathing deepens. Muscles relax. The cold remains, but it no longer shapes thought so sharply. Dreams thin and fade, replaced by heavier sleep. This is the point where rest finally takes hold. Not perfect, not uninterrupted, but sufficient. The mind quiets. Images blur. Awareness softens. Winter dreams are not meant to be understood. They are shaped by the body's effort to endure. Tonight, they have done their work, guiding small adjustments, releasing tension, easing you toward deeper rest. You sink further now, carried by warmth and fatigue. The ship moves steadily beneath you. The cold presses gently rather than sharply. Dreams retreat, leaving behind a quiet darkness that feels restful rather than empty. For a time, there are no images at all, just breath, pressure, and the faint awareness of being held within a moving world. You sleep, deeper than before, as winter continues its long watch outside, and the ship carries you onward through the night. Sleep loosens its hold again, not sharply, but gradually, as the character of the cold shifts around you. This is not the same winter everywhere. Even half asleep, your body senses the difference. The air here feels heavier, damp rather than biting. The ship's movement is familiar, but the cold presses in a new way, softer and more persistent. Where you sail matters. Pirates who moved between regions learned this quickly. Winter in northern waters carried a dry, cutting chill that numbed fingers and froze rigging stiff. Further south, the cold soaked instead, clinging to skin and cloth, stealing warmth slowly but relentlessly. Both demanded different strategies for sleep. You feel this damp cold now. It creeps upward from the deck, sneaking past layers of fabric, settling into joints rather than shocking them. Your body reacts by pulling inward, curling tighter, sealing off openings. You tuck your hands beneath your arms, protecting fingers from moisture that steals heat faster than air ever could. Accounts from sailors who worked both northern seas and warmer latitudes often describe this contrast with frustration. They wrote that southern winters felt colder at night, despite higher temperatures, because dampness robbed the body of warmth without warning. The cold felt less dramatic, but more exhausting. You sense others adjusting around you as well. Someone shifts to avoid a patch of moisture. Another pulls fabric higher along their side. No one complains. Experience has taught everyone that damp, cold demands vigilance. In the far north, winter sleep was a battle against freezing air. Breath turned to frost. Beards stiffened. Decks glittered faintly under moonlight. Pirates who ventured into these waters relied heavily on wool, fur, and constant movement during the day to survive the night. Sleep there was often shorter, lighter, interrupted by the need to restore circulation. Here, further south, the battle is different. Moisture lingers in everything. Clothing never fully dries. The smell of mildew mixes with tar and salt. Sleep becomes heavier, but less refreshing, as the body works harder to stay warm beneath clammy layers. There is a detail mentioned in several coastal records, noting that sailors preferred sleeping higher in the ship during damp winters, even if it meant exposure to drafts. Elevated spaces dried faster. Air moved. The trade-off between wind and moisture became a constant calculation. You feel that calculation happening now, even half asleep. You shift slightly upward, angling your body toward a drier pocket of air. The cold changes character again, becoming sharper but less suffocating. Your body accepts it. Some pirates adapted their routines based on region. In northern waters, they ate heavier meals and drank stronger spirits before sleep. In damp climates, they favored fires and airflow, even at the cost of some heat. These adjustments were rarely written down, but they appear consistently in descriptions from different voyages. You remember earlier nights when the cold felt clean, almost crisp. Tonight it feels thick. The air seems to press against your skin rather than slide past it. This sensation influences your breathing. Inhales feel fuller, exhales linger. Sleep responds accordingly. Dreams grow slower, more grounded. Images feel weighted, as if moving through water. The ship's sounds deepen, carrying farther through the damp air. There is a long-standing argument among historians studying maritime life about which climate posed greater danger to winter sailors. Some emphasize the obvious threats of freezing temperatures, others point to damp cold as more insidious, increasing illness and weakening crews over time. Your experience suggests both had their own quiet cruelty. Nearby, someone coughs softly, the sound wet and persistent. Damp air irritates lungs, especially after weeks at sea. You hear another cough, answer it from further down the deck. Illness spreads more easily when moisture lingers. You pull your collar higher again, shielding your neck. Wool helps, but even wool feels heavy when saturated. The warmth you share with others becomes even more important now, compensating for what clothing cannot fully provide. Your body adjusts its rhythm, shivering fades. Instead, there is a steady tension, muscles engaged just enough to generate heat. This low-level effort continues, even in sleep, invisible but draining. Sailors often remarked that waking from damp, cold sleep felt worse than waking from frozen cold. The body felt heavy, sluggish, resistant. You sense that truth now, even before morning arrives. Still, adaptation continues. You find a position that minimizes contact with moisture. Others mirror the movement, creating a new balance within the cluster. Shared warmth persists, though it feels slightly muted. Sleep deepens again, but differently than before. Less vivid dreaming, more blank stretches. The mind conserves energy, focusing on rest rather than imagery. Somewhere in the distance, water laps quietly against the hull. The sound feels closer in damp air, as if carried more efficiently. It blends with breathing and creaking, forming a low, constant hum. You surrender to it, letting the night take its shape around you. Winter is not one thing. It changes with geography, with wind, with water. Pirates learned to read those changes through their bodies long before charts or instruments explained them. Tonight, you sleep in a winter that clings rather than bites. You adjust, you endure, and as the ship moves steadily onward, Your body continues its quiet work of survival, adapting to yet another version of the cold. Sleep carries a different weight when you become aware of who surrounds you, not just bodies, but ages, experience, strength, worn thin or still growing. Winter nights reveal these differences quietly, without commentary, through breathing patterns, movement, and how quickly cold reaches bone. You notice it now. The younger bodies sleep harder, heavier. Their breathing is deep, almost reckless, as if the cold has not yet learned all their weaknesses. Limbs sprawl slightly farther from the center of warmth. They trust the night more than they should. Exhaustion carries them under quickly, and they stay there longer. Older bodies tell a different story. Their sleep is lighter, interrupted by small adjustments. They shift more often, protecting joints that stiffen easily in cold. Hands curl inward instinctively. Knees draw closer to the chest. Age has taught them where warmth escapes first. Pirate crews were rarely uniform in age. Contemporary descriptions from coastal officials and captured crew lists show men ranging from teenagers to sailors, well past their physical prime. Winter did not treat them equally. Younger crew bounced back faster in the morning. Older ones carried the cold with them into the day. You feel the difference in shared warmth. Younger bodies radiate heat generously. Their circulation runs strong. Older bodies conserve, holding warmth closer, releasing less into the shared space. Neither is selfish. It is biology shaped by time. There is a detail found in several port interrogations where captured pirates mentioned that older crew often slept nearer the center of groups during winter. This was not formal privilege. It was practical recognition. Those who suffered more from cold needed protection to remain useful. The crew adjusted without discussion. Gender plays a quieter role here, but it exists. Despite popular imagination, women did sail with pirate crews, though far fewer than men. When present, their nights were shaped by additional layers of caution. They slept closer to trusted companions, closer to light or exits, balancing warmth with safety. Accounts of women, pirates, and sailors often emphasize disguise or exceptional status, but winter sleep strips away legend. Cold does not care who you are. Smaller bodies lose heat faster. Those with less muscle mass shiver sooner. Layers and positioning mattered more than reputation. You sense how space is negotiated differently when vulnerability increases. Bodies form tighter clusters. Contact becomes more deliberate. Protection is extended quietly, not announced. There is an unspoken rule that appears again and again in personal narratives. No one sleeps entirely alone during winter, unless they choose to. Isolation invites danger. Even the most private among the crew accepts proximity when cold deepens. You feel someone younger than you press closer, seeking warmth without realizing it. Their breathing is fast, steady. They trust that someone else will wake if needed. That trust rests partly on age. Older crew members often woke more easily, more often, acting as informal guardians even in sleep. Some historians studying shipboard social dynamics suggest that age hierarchy softened at night. Daytime authority gave way to nighttime necessity. Strength mattered less than warmth. Experience mattered more than force. You feel that shift now. The night does not belong to the strongest voice or sharpest blade. It belongs to those who understand how to endure it. There is an old sailor saying, preserved in fragments of oral history, that winter turns everyone into children again, needing warmth, needing closeness, needing reassurance. Whether true or not, the sentiment captures something real. You notice how breathing patterns align across ages, slower here, faster there. Yet over time, they settle into a shared rhythm. The body adapts to the group, matching pace unconsciously. Dreams differ too. Younger sleepers twitch, reacting to imagined movement. Older ones lie still, dreams deeper but shorter, interrupted by awareness of cold or ache. You drift somewhere between, aware of both ends of the spectrum. The night makes no allowance for pride. Those who resist shared warmth suffer quietly until they give in. Those who accept it earlier rest better. Age teaches this lesson faster than youth. There is debate among historians about whether pirate crews were unusually inclusive for their time, particularly regarding age and background. Some argue that survival at sea forced practical equality, others caution against romanticizing hardship. What you feel now suggests that winter demanded cooperation regardless of belief. A cough from an older throat breaks the rhythm briefly. Someone younger shifts, making space, offering warmth. The gesture is small, automatic, learned through repetition rather than instruction. You feel the group settle again. Warmth redistributes. The night resumes its steady pressure. Gender, age, strength, experience all exist here, layered beneath the shared task of enduring cold. They shape where you lie, how you breathe, how quickly you wake. But they do not divide the group. Winter flattens hierarchy into necessity. Sleep deepens again, carried by that necessity. You rest among bodies at different stages of life, bound together by cold and motion, by the quiet understanding that everyone here depends on everyone else. The ship creaks softly. Water moves alongside. Winter continues its slow test outside. Inside, age and youth share warmth, trading vigilance for rest as the night carries on. Sleep grows lighter again, not because of cold or discomfort, but because of tension, not fear exactly, expectation. Even at rest, you can feel it moving through the ship like a low current. Authority does not sleep as deeply as exhaustion, and tonight, authority presses gently against comfort. You sense it in the way bodies remain arranged, not sprawling, not careless. Even now, even warm enough to rest, everyone keeps a shape that can be broken quickly. Knees bent, arms free, boots still on. Comfort is allowed, but never at the cost of readiness. Discipline aboard pirate ships is often misunderstood. It did not resemble naval rigidity, but it existed all the same. Articles of agreement outlined consequences for theft, violence, and desertion. Beyond those written rules, unwritten expectations governed behavior, especially during vulnerable moments like sleep. You feel those expectations now. No one takes the warmest spot indefinitely. No one blocks access routes. No one sleeps so deeply that they cannot be woken. Comfort is shared, but always balanced against the need to respond. Some captains enforced this balance strictly. Under their command, sleep came in shorter stretches. Positions were assigned and rotated. Fires were limited. Warmth was rationed. These leaders believed hardship preserved discipline, and discipline preserved survival. Others ruled differently. They allowed clustering. They tolerated longer rest when conditions were calm. They trusted their crew to wake when needed. Loyalty grew under such leadership, strengthened by shared comfort rather than constant strain. You can tell what kind of captain you serve by how the night feels. Tonight, comfort exists, but within boundaries. That suggests a leader who understands both sides. Warmth is permitted. Order is maintained. There is an account from a captured merchant who later described a pirate ship as quieter at night than many naval vessels. He noted fewer shouted commands, fewer sudden movements. Control was maintained through expectation rather than constant correction. That atmosphere allowed rest without sacrificing readiness. You feel that atmosphere now. The ship hums with restrained energy. Even in sleep, it feels prepared. Some historians argue that pirate crews thrived precisely because they balanced freedom with structure. Too much chaos invited disaster. Too much control bred resentment. Nighttime routines reveal this balance more clearly than daytime bravado ever could. You adjust slightly, careful not to disrupt others. Someone else shifts in response, making room without complaint. This silent negotiation preserves both warmth and order. Cold presses gently at your face. Warmth holds your core. The balance mirrors the larger one aboard the ship. Exposure and protection, freedom and rule, comfort and vigilance. You recall how earlier, in port or tavern, sleep felt deeper, less guarded. Here, even when conditions are calm, part of you remains alert. The ship is not land. It never fully releases you. There is a quiet understanding that night is when danger often arrives. Enemy ships approach under cover of darkness. Storms gather unseen. Ice forms silently. Sleep must coexist with awareness. This understanding shapes how deeply you allow yourself to rest. Dreams stay closer to the surface. Muscles remain engaged just enough to respond. Breathing slows, but does not fully surrender. There is a lesser-known practice mentioned in a few pirate narratives where crew members slept with one hand touching the deck or a beam. The contact anchored them, making it easier to wake quickly and orient themselves. Whether common or symbolic, the image captures the mindset well. You feel the deck beneath you now. Solid, cold, reliable. The ship is your ground, even when it moves. Nearby, someone sighs softly, settling into a deeper phase of sleep. Another shifts closer, then stops, careful not to overstep. Even rest respects boundaries here. Some scholars question whether pirate discipline softened over time as crews grew more confident. Others suggest winter voyages always tightened control, regardless of leadership style. Cold focuses priorities. Comfort becomes secondary to survival. Tonight, the two coexist carefully. You are warm enough. You are not careless. The ship creaks in familiar patterns. No alarm follows. The sound is accepted, categorized, dismissed. This mental filtering allows rest to continue without fear. Your thoughts slow again, not into total darkness, but into a quiet, watchful calm. This is not the deep sleep of safety, it is the sleep of readiness. You sense the presence of authority without seeing it. Perhaps the captain rests aft. Perhaps a trusted officer walks quietly above. Their vigilance extends into the sleeping space, not as threat, but as reassurance. You trust that if something changes, you will be woken. That trust allows you to let go just enough. Winter nights aboard pirate ships demand this compromise. Too much relaxation invites danger. Too much tension exhausts the body. The balance is learned through nights like this one, refined by experience. Your breathing evens out. Muscles soften, but do not collapse. Awareness dims, but does not vanish. You sleep again, lightly but steadily, wrapped in shared warmth and shared responsibility. The ship continues forward through the dark, carrying not just bodies, but an understanding forged by cold, motion, and the quiet discipline of those who know that comfort is earned and vigilance never fully sleeps. Sleep drifts in again with a warmth that feels almost artificial, spreading quickly and unevenly through your limbs. This is the kind of warmth that promises more than it delivers. Rum warmth, ale warmth, the sort that glows brightly at first, then fades when you are not paying attention. You tasted it earlier, perhaps hours ago now. A mug passed hand to hand, a swallow taken not for pleasure, but for courage against the cold. Alcohol has always played a complicated role in winter nights at sea. It feels helpful, it feels necessary, and yet, it tells a convincing lie. Sailors across the medieval world drank before sleep in winter. Ship logs, port accounts, and personal letters all hint at this habit without moral judgment. A small ration calmed nerves, dulled aches, and made the first moments of rest easier. You feel that memory now, lingering at the edges of awareness. Your face feels warmer than it should, your fingers too. Blood has rushed outward, encouraged by drink, spreading heat where cold usually dominates. The sensation is pleasant, soothing, and dangerous at the same time. There is a widely accepted understanding among modern historians that alcohol creates the illusion of warmth while actually increasing heat loss. Sailors did not have this language, but many learned the effect through experience. Drink helped you fall asleep, but it often made you colder later in the night. You sense that shift beginning now. The initial glow fades. The cold creeps back in, sharper for the contrast. You pull your arms closer, instinctively correcting for what the drink has taken away. Some crews tried to manage this by timing their drinking carefully. A sip too late meant waking cold. A sip too early faded before sleep arrived. Winter nights taught moderation not through rules, but through discomfort. There is a curious detail found in several coastal court testimonies, where sailors claimed they slept better sober during the coldest nights. Others insisted the opposite. The disagreement runs through historical accounts without resolution. Bodies respond differently. Belief shapes experience as much as chemistry. You feel your breathing deepen as the last of the alcohol's edge softens. Muscles loosen, then tighten again as cold returns. Sleep becomes uneven, stitched together by warmth gained from others rather than from within. Nearby, someone exhales loudly, the smell of spirits faint on their breath. Another mutters in sleep, words slurred even in dreams. Drink carries into rest, shaping dreams and reactions. There is an old saying preserved in fragments of sailor humor that rum steals your blanket. It makes you feel brave enough to lie uncovered, then leaves you shivering later. Whether meant as joke or warning, the phrase endured because it rang true often enough. You adjust your position, pressing closer to shared warmth. Alcohol warmth may fade, but human warmth does not vanish so quickly. Bodies compensate for chemistry. Cooperation fills the gap left by false comfort. Some historians argue that pirate crews drank more heavily than naval sailors, given their looser discipline and access to plunder. Others point out that winter curtailed excess, forcing restraint. Drunkenness impaired survival. Crews that overindulged paid for it in frostbitten fingers and sluggish reactions. Tonight, Drinking has been modest, enough to ease the first edge of cold, not enough to claim you fully. You are grateful for that balance now, even if you did not choose it consciously. Your dreams respond to the fading influence. Images blur briefly, colors soften, then clarity returns as cold sharpens the mind again. You wake slightly, then settle, finding equilibrium between alertness and rest. The ship creaks softly. Water moves alongside. The night remains steady. Alcohol becomes just another element in the layered strategy of winter survival. Useful in moments, dangerous if trusted too much. You feel your core warmth stabilizing again as shared heat takes over. Breath slows. Muscles relax in a more honest way now, supported by bodies rather than illusion. There is a record from a northern port physician who treated sailors each winter. He noted that those who relied heavily on drink to sleep suffered more from cold-related ailments. Those who layered, clustered, and ate well fared better. His observations were practical, not moral. Survival left little room for judgment. You sense that wisdom now without naming it. The body remembers what helps and what hurts. Experience becomes instinct. Sleep grows steadier again, less dreamy, more grounded. The false warmth has passed, leaving behind a clearer sense of the cold and how to manage it. Your breathing evens out. You press closer to the group. The ship carries you onward through dark water, while winter watches from outside. Rum may promise comfort, but tonight, true warmth comes from wool, bodies, and restraint. You drift into rest with that understanding settling quietly beneath consciousness, another lesson learned without words on a long winter night at sea. The night thins toward its coldest point just before dawn. You feel it before you understand it. Warmth retreats slightly, not because anything has changed inside the ship, but because the outside world tightens its grip. This is the hour sailors learn to respect, the quietest, the coldest, the one that tests sleep the most. Your body responds by drawing inward again. Chin lowers, arms fold tighter, knees press closer to your chest. Even in rest, instinct recognizes this moment. It is when fires burn lowest, when breath fogs faintly even below deck, when dampness settles heavier into wood and cloth. Those who spent their lives at sea often remarked that the cold before sunrise felt sharper than any other time of night. Coastal diaries and ship journals mention this hour repeatedly, describing how men woke shivering despite having slept warmly earlier. The world seems to pause here, holding its breath. You hear fewer sounds now. Footsteps above deck grow slower, more deliberate. Watches are quiet. Voices drop to murmurs. The ship feels suspended between night and morning, neither fully resting nor yet moving into the day. Sleep becomes fragile again. Dreams pull away easily, replaced by awareness of cold air against your face. You blink without opening your eyes, adjusting to the sensation. This is not panic, it is preparation. There is a detail noted in several old sailor accounts, where men describe this hour as the one when resolve was tested. The body wants to curl inward and stay still. The day demands movement soon. Those who manage this transition well conserved strength. You feel someone nearby shift, perhaps waking briefly, perhaps just adjusting. Another body presses closer, reclaiming warmth that drifted away. Shared heat becomes more precious now than at any other point in the night. The ship creaks softly, as if aware of the change. Wood contracts slightly in the cold. Joints tighten. The familiar sounds deepen, taking on a heavier tone. You register these changes without fully waking, your mind categorizing them as normal, expected. Some sailors believed this hour invited misfortune, that accidents were more likely just before dawn, when fatigue peaked and vigilance slipped. Whether superstition or observation, the belief shaped behavior. Movement slowed. Tasks were double-checked. Sleep stayed lighter. You feel that lightness now. Your rest is shallow, ready to break. Muscles remain engaged. Breathing stays steady but alert. Cold presses at the edges of the group. It slips through gaps in clothing, finds skin where layers shift. You respond by sealing those gaps instinctively. Collar higher, hands tucked deeper. The adjustments are small but precise. There is an odd comfort in this shared struggle. Everyone feels it. Everyone responds. No one complains. The night has reached its final test, and the crew meets it together. Some historians suggest that repeated exposure to this pre-dawn cold trained sailors to wake early, their bodies conditioned to rise with the chill. Others argue that the cold simply forced awareness upon exhausted minds. Either way, Winter reshaped sleep patterns. You sense your own wakefulness increasing. Not fully awake, but closer. Thoughts begin to form again, slow and heavy. Morning duties hover at the edge of awareness without demanding attention yet. A faint change in sound signals that dawn is approaching. Water moves differently. Wind shifts. The ship seems to inhale slowly, preparing for the day. You do not rise yet. You take what rest remains. This final stretch of sleep, though light, matters. It carries you into the morning with a little more strength. The cold reaches its peak, then holds. Your body endures it, supported by layers, bodies, and habit. You breathe steadily, refusing to shiver, conserving energy for when movement is required. Someone above deck clears their throat softly. A lantern shifts. The night begins to loosen. Sleep fades, not abruptly, but like mist thinning. You are still resting, but no longer drifting. Awareness returns gently, guided by cold and sound. Winter nights aboard ship end this way, not with alarm or light, but with a quiet tightening that pulls sailors toward wakefulness. You feel it now, poised between rest and readiness, waiting for the day to claim you. Morning does not arrive cleanly. It seeps in, diluted and hesitant, carried more by sound than by light. You sense it before you see anything change. The ship's movements shift again, becoming more purposeful. Ropes are tested. A footstep above deck lands with intention rather than routine pacing. The night loosens its hold, but it does not vanish. You remain still for a moment, suspended between sleep and waking. This is the last quiet pocket before the day demands your body back. Cold still presses at your face and hands, but it feels different now, less threatening, more negotiable. Pirate ships often woke earlier than naval vessels, especially in uncertain waters. Surprise favored those already alert. Logs and testimonies from captured sailors suggest that crews rose with the first usable light, not sunrise itself. Winter shortened that window, compressing rest and labor closer together. You feel the group around you stirring. No one leaps up. Movements are slow, economical. Someone stretches a leg carefully. Another rubs hands together, coaxing blood back into fingers. A quiet groan escapes, then stops. Complaints are rare this early. Everyone understands what the day requires. There is a subtle difference between this waking and the kind you knew on land. No yawning leisure, no gradual ease into the day. The ship demands readiness first, comfort later. Sleep ends because it must, not because you feel rested. You push awareness fully into your body now. You take inventory, fingers stiff but responsive, legs heavy but workable, breath steady. The night did not defeat you. That counts as success. Some historians have compared pirate morning routines to those of naval crews, noting similarities shaped by environment rather than ideology. The sea dictated rhythm more than rank. Both rose early, both prioritized readiness. Differences emerged later, in discipline and hierarchy, not in the raw mechanics of waking. You sit up slowly, careful not to rush blood from your head. The deck is colder now than it was earlier, having released its stored warmth overnight. You feel it immediately through boots and cloth. The sensation sharpens focus. Nearby, someone offers a hand briefly, steadying themselves more than you. Another stands and steps away, making room. The sleeping space dissolves quickly, reforming into a working environment without ceremony. The sounds of morning grow clearer. A bucket scrapes. A line is hauled. A low voice issues a short instruction. The ship stretches itself awake, just as the crew does. You glance toward where the brazier had been earlier. Cold ash now. No heat left to borrow. The day will provide its own warmth through movement, if the weather allows. There is an overlooked detail in several accounts from winter voyages that mentions how sailors dreaded stopping after dawn. Movement kept cold at bay. Standing still invited stiffness and pain. Morning labor became a way to generate heat as much as accomplish tasks. You feel that truth immediately. As you stand, muscles protest briefly, then warm as blood flows. The ache from the night recedes just enough to allow motion. Sleep has done its work, even if it felt shallow. Above deck, the sky begins to show itself. Not bright, not welcoming, but present. Grey light spreads slowly across low clouds. You inhale, the air colder but cleaner than below deck. The smell of night lingers on your clothes, but fresh wind cuts through it. Some pirates preferred to sleep above deck in winter mornings, letting dawn wake them naturally. Others avoided it, knowing frost and wind punished exposed skin. Choices varied, shaped by experience and personal tolerance. You join the rhythm of the ship, hands moving automatically through familiar tasks. Coil rope, check knots, shift weight with the deck. The body remembers what the mind has not yet fully engaged. There is debate among historians about whether pirates slept less than other sailors due to heightened danger. Some argue that constant threat shortened rest. Others point out that necessity enforced efficiency rather than deprivation. Sleep adapted rather than diminished. You feel that adaptation now. You are not fully rested by modern standards, but you are functional, alert, ready. The night gave you what it could. Cold remains present, but it no longer dominates. Daylight changes the relationship. You can see the cold now. Frost on rope, pale breath in the air. Visibility transforms discomfort into manageable reality. Someone nearby laughs softly at nothing in particular. The sound is brief, but telling. Survival through the night brings relief, even if no one celebrates it openly. As the ship moves forward into the grey morning, sleep recedes into memory. Its lessons remain: how to layer, how to cluster, how to endure. Winter has not ended, but another night has been met and passed. You work now, warmed by motion, guided by habit. The sea stretches ahead, indifferent and endless. When night comes again, you will remember what to do. For now, the day claims you, and sleep fades quietly into the background, its purpose fulfilled. By the time the day has fully taken shape, you feel the cold differently. It no longer attacks in sharp bursts or creeping damp. It settles deeper, into bone and memory. This is what years at sea do. Winter stops being a season you endure and becomes something you carry with you. You notice it in how older pirates move once the morning work is done. Younger bodies bounce back quickly, shaking off the night with motion and noise. Older ones warm more slowly. Their joints loosen in stages. Their breath stays measured, conserving energy even in daylight. Age at sea is not counted in years alone. It is measured in winters survived. Each cold night leaves a trace. Stiff fingers that never quite straighten the same way. Knees that complain when the deck tilts suddenly. Shoulders that ache long after the rope is released. You feel the early signs of it in yourself now. A heaviness that did not exist before the night. A dull awareness beneath movement. Sleep has restored you enough to function, but not enough to erase what winter has etched. There is a pattern noted quietly in maritime records and port observations. Sailors who spent many winters at sea tended to wake earlier, even when not required. Their bodies no longer trusted long rest. Cold trained them toward vigilance, waking them before stiffness fully set in. You sense that instinct forming. Even if given the chance, you would not sleep much longer. The body prefers motion now, warmth through effort rather than rest. Older pirates often adjusted their sleeping habits as years passed. They sought positions closer to warmth earlier in the night. They layered more carefully. They avoided damp areas instinctively. Experience refined their choices until they felt automatic. Some accounts suggest that aging pirates gravitated toward roles that allowed less exposure to night cold. Steering, navigation, supervision. Others stayed on deck out of pride or necessity, accepting the toll without complaint. There is disagreement among historians about how long pirate careers typically lasted. Some argue most died young. Others point to evidence of seasoned veterans active well into middle age. Winter survival played a role in who lasted. Bodies that adapted endured. Others faded quickly. You feel respect for those older bodies around you now. They carry knowledge written not in words, but in habits. How to sleep just enough. How to position joints. How to wake without injury. During the night, you noticed how older crew shifted less dramatically, conserving warmth and energy. Their movements were efficient, deliberate, nothing wasted. Cold punishes waste first. Sleep itself changes with age at sea. Dreams shorten. Waking becomes easier. Rest becomes something you dip into rather than surrender to. Winter accelerates this transformation. There is an old saying preserved in fragments of sailor humor that winter steals years faster than storms. It sounds exaggerated until you live through enough cold nights. Then it feels precise. You feel that truth settling now. The night did not defeat you, but it took something small, a little elasticity, a little ease. It will not return. And yet, there is strength in this adaptation. Bodies that learn to sleep lightly in winter survive better. They respond faster. They protect themselves instinctively. Aging at sea is not just decline, it is refinement. You think back to the night just past. How quickly you learned where to place your hands, how naturally you curled inward, how you woke before dawn without alarm. These are not losses, they are adjustments. Some scholars suggest that veteran sailors often slept less overall, but more efficiently. Their rest came in precise intervals, tuned to the ship's rhythm. Winter sharpened that efficiency. You feel yourself settling into that pattern now. Even as the day unfolds, part of you is already preparing for the next night, choosing clothing, noticing dampness, remembering where warmth gathered most effectively. Cold no longer feels like an enemy to fight, it feels like a condition to manage. This shift marks the difference between surviving one winter and surviving many. The ship moves steadily beneath you. The sea glints faintly in pale daylight. Around you, younger crew talk, laugh, complain about the cold. Older ones listen quietly, hands busy, conserving words as well as warmth. You belong somewhere between those worlds now, no longer careless, not yet hardened beyond feeling. Winter has taught you enough to change how you sleep, how you wake, how you endure. As the day progresses, the night recedes into memory, but it leaves behind its imprint. You carry it in your muscles, your habits, your awareness. When evening comes again, you will recognize the signs sooner. You will prepare more deliberately. You will sleep differently, not because you choose to, but because your body has learned. This is how winters shape pirates over time, not through dramatic moments, but through quiet repetition, night after night, adjustment after adjustment. And as the ship continues forward, you accept this change without resentment. It is the cost of staying alive, the cost of belonging to the sea through its coldest months. The final night of a winter voyage does not announce itself. It feels almost the same as all the others, yet something in you recognizes it, not through sight or sound, but through memory. The cold still presses, the ship still creaks, bodies still gather for warmth, and yet the night feels softer, as if its edges have been worn smooth by repetition. You lie down knowing what to expect now. There is no uncertainty left in the process. Clothing is layered without thought. Hands find familiar positions. Your body curls inward naturally, conserving heat without instruction. What once required attention has become instinct. Around you, the crew settles with the same quiet efficiency. No one fumbles, no one complains. Even the younger ones move with practiced ease now, winter having taught them its lessons. The group forms quickly, warmth redistributing itself as if guided by an invisible map. This last winter night feels reflective, not in words, but in sensation. Every ache in your joints carries a memory of earlier nights. Every warm breath against your shoulder reminds you how many times this same position saved you from shivering awake. There is a well-known pattern noted by observers of long sea voyages. The final nights before conditions change often feel calmer, regardless of weather. Crews have adapted. Fear has been replaced by familiarity. Winter no longer surprises. You sense that calm now. The cold still exists, but it no longer demands your full attention. You know how to answer it. Pull in, breathe slowly, stay close, rest lightly. The ship's sounds feel intimate. Each creak is recognized, each shift understood. You no longer scan noises for danger automatically. Your mind categorizes them smoothly, allowing rest to deepen. There is an old belief found in fragments of maritime tradition that ships remember their crews, that after long voyages, the vessel settles differently, shaped by shared rhythm. Whether myth or metaphor, the idea fits this moment. The ship feels familiar in a way that goes beyond routine. You drift into sleep more easily now than on earlier nights, not deeper, but steadier. The night does not pull you under in waves. It holds you at a constant depth, comfortable and secure. Dreams come, but they are gentle, not shaped by cold or fear. They are filled with simple images, still water, low firelight, resting bodies. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent. You wake briefly, not from discomfort, but from habit. The hour before dawn approaches. The cold tightens slightly. You adjust automatically, no thought required. Some historians have suggested that humans adapt to harsh environments, not by eliminating discomfort, but by normalizing it. Winter sleep at sea proves this. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable through repetition and community. You feel gratitude now, quiet and understated, not for comfort, but for competence. You know how to survive this night. That knowledge is enough. As sleep returns again, It carries a sense of closure. This winter night is not special because it is easier, but because it confirms what you have learned. You belong here now, in this rhythm of cold and warmth, motion and rest. The ship moves steadily. Water slides past the hull. Breath rises and falls around you. Winter remains outside, but it no longer feels endless. And slowly, without ceremony, the night loosens its grip for the last time this season. Now the pacing slows. The cold that once demanded attention fades into something distant, something no longer urgent. Your breathing lengthens, each inhale deeper than the last, each exhale softer, as if the air itself is becoming heavier and calmer. The ship's sounds grow gentler in your mind, blending into a single, low hum. Creaks smooth into rhythm. Water becomes a quiet presence rather than a force. Even the cold feels less sharp, more like a memory than a sensation. You no longer need to adjust. Your body has found its balance. Muscles release the last of their tension. Hands rest easily. Jaw softens. The effort of endurance slips away. Imagine the night widening around you, not closing in, but opening. The darkness is no longer something to push against. It becomes a blanket, slow and steady, wrapping gently instead of pressing down. You are warm enough, safe enough, still enough. Thoughts drift without forming. Images blur at the edges. The ship continues forward, but you no longer follow its movement consciously. You are carried now, without effort. Let the final traces of cold dissolve. Let the sound of the sea fade into silence. Let sleep deepen naturally, without forcing it. There is nothing left to prepare for, nothing left to endure. Just rest, just breath, just the quiet certainty that for this moment you are exactly where you need to be. Sweet dreams.